The moment you react, you've already lost. There's something Nietzsche once showed me. Something simple, but brutal. You've already lost, he told me, the moment you start reacting. I didn't understand at first. I thought, how can that be? Isn't standing up for yourself strength? Isn't defending your truth noble? I remember the moment. I was in the middle of a conversation that had turned into a war. Every word was a weapon. Every pause a trap. I wasn't listening. I was loading. And they weren't hearing me either, just waiting for a gap to fire back. Then I heard it in my mind again. If you're trying to win, you've already forgotten yourself. It didn't come as a judgment. It came like a mirror. I saw myself. Not powerful, but frantic. Not clear, but desperate. And suddenly I realized I was no longer choosing. I was just reacting. Nietzsche once asked me, "Why do you argue?" I gave him the answer I thought sounded wise. To defend myself, to protect my truth, to be heard. But he didn't flinch. He just looked at me. And in that silence, I realized something terrifying. I wasn't defending the truth. I was defending my fear of being wrong. It hit me like a cold wind. How many times had I kept speaking, not because I believed in what I said, but because I couldn't bear the thought of losing. Nietzsche didn't accuse me. He didn't even answer. He let the question hang there like a thread I had to pull myself. And when I did, I saw how often I mistook volume for conviction. I wasn't trying to connect. I was trying to win. And win what, exactly? A false sense of control? A fragile sense of superiority? He later said, "Most arguments are not battles for truth, but performances of insecurity." And I saw it. How I spoke louder when I felt smaller. How I interrupted more when I feared being irrelevant. And how silence, real, calm, sovereign silence, was what I feared most. Because in silence, you can't hide behind noise anymore. Nietzsche told me once, "You don't rise above others by standing on them. You rise by refusing to enter their arena." At first, I didn't understand. I thought rising meant proving, convincing, standing taller than the rest. But slowly, I started to notice something. Every time I tried to win, I felt weaker afterward. Not because I lost, but because I had emptied myself in a fight that meant nothing. I gave my energy to people who weren't even listening. I spilled my truth in places where it was never invited. And Nietzsche's words came back to me like a whisper. The moment you explain yourself to someone committed to misunderstanding you, you've already given them your center. I started to see how often I spoke just to fill the silence, how often I reacted because stillness made me feel exposed. But the truth is, stillness isn't exposure, it's sovereignty. And so I began to pause, to breathe before I replied, to sit with discomfort, to observe instead of jumping in. It wasn't easy. My ego fought me every time. Say something. Don't let them think they've won. Prove your value. But I didn't. I stayed still. And in that stillness, I started to feel different, stronger, clearer, quieter, but louder inside. And that's when Nietzsche told me the line I never forgot. The one who does not flinch, while the world screams for a reaction, holds the real power. Picture this. A room, tense. Two people locked in disagreement. One is animated, loud, sharp, relentless. The other is still, calm, present. The loud one thinks they're in control, but the room feels something else. Everyone watches the quiet one, because silence does something that words never can. It builds tension. It shifts gravity. People lean in. They start to wonder, what is he thinking? What is she holding back? Silence makes them feel exposed. Nietzsche once said to me, Those who can remain calm in chaos disturb everyone else. That moment changed everything. I used to think silence was surrender, that staying quiet meant I had nothing to say. But now I know. Silence says more than noise ever could. It turns the emotional battlefield into a chessboard. While others throw words like punches, you let them exhaust themselves. And then, if you choose to speak, one phrase, one well-placed truth can shift the entire room. The Übermensch doesn't silence others. He doesn't dominate by force. He dominates by presence. He holds his ground without raising his voice. He doesn't play every game, only the ones that matter. And because he speaks so rarely, when he does, people listen. At some point, I stopped explaining, stopped defending, stopped replying, not to be cruel, not to punish, but because I realized I was no longer willing to be edited by other people's expectations. And when I fell silent, something happened. The people who once dismissed me started asking where I'd gone. The ones who pushed me now called me distant. And the ones who loved the old version of me, the always available version, didn't know what to do with my stillness. Nietzsche told me, people don't fear losing you. They fear meeting themselves in the silence you leave behind. That shook me. I used to think being misunderstood was failure, that I had to explain myself until I was seen clearly. But now I see it. If someone needs your noise to feel safe, your silence will always feel like a threat. And if your boundaries shake them, it's because they were never in relationship with the real you, only with the version of you that never said no. Your silence doesn't create the distance. It reveals it. And the people who truly see you, they don't panic when you go quiet. They wait. They respect it. Because they know silence is not rejection. It's self-respect in its purest form. At first, silence was uncomfortable. It felt like abandonment, like being invisible. But slowly, it started to feel like something else, like returning. I wasn't disappearing. I was detoxing from fake connections, from performative empathy, from the constant need to explain myself. Nietzsche used to tell me, the one who learns to sit in silence learns to hear the voice beneath the noise. And that voice was mine, not the conditioned one, not the one shaped by fear, praise, or memory. The real one, the one I had buried beneath years of reactivity. In the silence, my thoughts slowed down. My need to be understood evaporated. I started asking different questions. What do I really believe? What pain am I carrying that isn't even mine? Who am I when no one is watching? And then came solitude, but not the kind that breaks you, the kind that rebuilds you. Because when you finally stop chasing noise, you start hearing truth. And that truth isn't loud, it's patient. It waits, it watches. And when you're finally quiet enough, it begins to speak. Not about others, about you. About the strength you thought was gone. About the version of yourself you abandoned just to survive in rooms that never saw you. That's when I understood. Silence was never the absence of sound. It was the presence of self. After the silence comes something else. Clarity. You begin to see the games you used to play, the performances, the roles you accepted just to be liked, just to be kept. And something inside you whispers, no more. Not from anger, not from pride, but from calm, from presence, from finally seeing what's worth your energy. Nietzsche told me, he who cannot command himself must obey others forever. And that's the difference. You no longer move because of pressure. You move because of purpose. You don't speak to prove. You speak to create. Silence gave you that choice. It built a space between impulse and intention. And in that space, Something sacred appeared. Self-mastery. Now you don't answer every message. You don't chase every invitation. You don't fight battles that don't feed your soul. You observe. You choose. You walk away when it's time, without guilt, without performance, without leaving breadcrumbs for others to follow. Because your path is no longer theirs to understand, it's yours to walk. And every step is built on a deeper truth. Not everything that wants your attention deserves your presence. Nietzsche didn't want followers. He wanted creators. People who weren't shaped by noise, but by inner clarity. And now I understand why. Because when you walk through silence and stay there long enough, you come out different. Not louder, not harder, just undeniable. You don't need to raise your voice. Your presence says enough. You don't need to beg to be understood. Your choices speak for you. You become selective, not bitter, calm, not passive. Alone sometimes, but never lonely. Because you've become whole. And in a world that teaches you to always be reachable, always be agreeable, always be on, choosing yourself is a rebellion, and your silence is the anthem. So if you're here now, if you've made it this far, maybe a part of you is already walking this path. The path where you don't just react, you design. The path where solitude isn't empty, it's sacred. And if it feels uncomfortable at first, good. That means you're no longer sedated by distraction. Nietzsche whispered this to me once. Become who you are. Not who they expect, not who they remember, but who you were before the world told you to apologize for it. And now I'll ask you, the same way he asked me, are you ready to be misunderstood? In order to finally be real? If this message touched you, don't applaud it. Just stay silent. Let it echo. Let it settle. If something inside you moved, write it below. I choose my silence. Not because you have nothing to say, but because now, finally, you know when to say it. And remember, subscribing here isn't for the algorithm. It's for the soul. I'll see you in the next one. In the shadow or in the light. Wherever you are, I'll be watching you.